I'd like to bring to order the July 7th meeting of the Tiverton Town Council. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What did I say, just July 7th? Because it's posted July 7th. It's July 11th, by the way, I'm a little off. I've been on vacation for 2 weeks, so I don't know the dates. Madam Clerk?
Councilor Perry.
Present.
Councilor Cook. Here. Councilor Janick. Present. Councilor deMedeiros.
Present.
Councilor Burk.
Here.
Councilors Edwards and Councilor Vieira are absent.
Yes. At this time, the Town Council would like to administer oath to office to the new firefighters. Please come forward. Alex Back, Brandon BOTELHO, Nathaniel Davies, Daniel Gardner, Ian McWHORTER, Jeffrey Morrow, Matthew Pierce, and Tyler Ruggiero.
Yeah, you can bring, yeah, that should reach you. Just bring the stand.
I'm going to go real slow, like I promised, okay? I state your name, please. Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and obey the laws of the United States of America
and obey the laws of the United States of America
and of the state of Rhode Island.
and of the state of Rhode Island.
And I will, in all respects,
And I will, in all respects,
observe the provisions of the Charter
observe the provisions of the Charter
and ordinances of the town of Tiverton,
and ordinances of the town of Tiverton,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of firefighter
and will faithfully discharge the duties of firefighter
in the fire department
in the fire department
for the town of Tiverton.
for the town of Tiverton.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, guys. Counselor, do you want to come up? We're going to take a little recess. We can all take pictures, okay? I want the counselors to come up and congratulate. Continue. Consent agenda, approval of town council minutes, June 27th, 2022. Regular meeting, Council Perry abstains, absent. Acknowledge receipts of minutes from boards, commissions, and committees. Solar Ordinance Advisory Committee 4, Harbor and Coastal Water Management 1. Acknowledge receipt of reports, Town Administrator, Department's monthly reports, June 2022. Town Administrator, Police and Fire Department overtime reports, June 2022. Acknowledge receipts of correspondence, residents' letter regarding new gas station at Main Road and Sousa Road. Approval of tax assessor abatements of $15,623.39. Would any of the councils like to take anything off the consent agenda? Like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made in second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Any comments? No. Public hearing, discussion and possible vote. Restive LLC, DBA Four Corners Grill, 3841 Main Road, Tiverton, Rhode Island, 02878. Request approval for BVL liquor license, subject to meeting all legal requirements. Attached is a letter from abutter Peggy Sambrault, letter in support. Gentlemen, are you with? Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? So, this is a transfer of license.
Right, we've been managing the restaurant for many, many, many years.
But Roz has
Roz has
had
had
the
the
liquor
license.
license.
We're purchasing the real estate, and obviously with it, the business in its entirety.
Okay.
So the license would now need to be.
So this is a license that already exists, that's under another person. So this isn't an additional license. This is another.
It's a transfer?
It's just a transfer.
Yeah, the limited, BVL.
Yep, yeah.
Yep.
Any questions?
I just have a question.
Go ahead.
Is it also the Four Corners down at the Four Corners also, or is this?
It is, that is the one.
It's only the
3841
Four
Main
Corners.
Road.
It's not, this
I
is,
think they,
Are you thinking of Sakana?
don't they own the Sakana?
We have Sakana, yeah. this
Yeah,
is-
but
this-
they,
yeah, so
yeah,
we
but
have-
they own that with their own liquor license, I
Correct.
imagine
A
that.
couple restaurants.
Right.
Yeah, yes,
Okay,
not only that one.
Should I do that?
Okay, so I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the license.
Public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is a public hearing. Thank you, Michael. I'd like to open up for the public if anyone has any discussion regarding this subject. Open up to the public. Okay, I closed the public hearing. Now I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we approve the liquor, well, it's a BVL liquor license, subject to meeting all requirements. And
Yep.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a
Second.
motion been made in second? Any further discussion from the council? All those in favor? Stay right there.
Look at the picture.
I think stay right there, yeah.
You have to be able to eat.
Yes, that's true. It's not just about the booze. Yeah.
Board of Licensing discussion possible vote. Restive LLC, DBA Four Corners, 3841 Main Road, Tiverton. Request approval for victualling license, subject to meeting all legal requirements. Any questions? This is not a public hearing. Any questions? Like to entertain a motion?
I'll make that motion to approve the Four Corner Grill approval for victual license, subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
No, go
Motion.
Donna.
Okay.
Was it your turn, Mike?
No, go ahead. It's your turn.
Motion's been made. Motion's been made in second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? There you go.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Yes.
we have a wedding that was advertised for sound variance, public hearing.
Yeah, and I know you gave it to me, Joan. Okay, here it is. So this is a public hearing. Because we didn't advertise it, this is discussion only, and then we will put it on the next agenda. Well, we did advertise it, we just didn't put it on the agenda. So this is application from Mark and Sharon Moore for 365 Main Road to have a wedding on 4375 Main Road on September 4th, 2022, from 5 to 10. And this is a request for a noise or a sound variance. Is Mark or Sharon here? No, probably because they weren't on the agenda. All right, so anybody, there's really no one to ask questions to, but,
You want to open the hearing and then,
yeah.
You can't open the
No,
hearing,
I
right?
can't open the hearing.
It's
Oh,
not on the
okay.
agenda,
Oh,
so
okay.
if you could add it
I
to
thought
the
you had said
agenda
open it and
So
then,
I
for
need a
discussion
motion.
only.
yeah.
Right.
Motion to add to the agenda, this item to the agenda,
For discussion
for
only.
discussion only.
Second.
All those in favor? Because the people who requested this is not here, does anyone have any questions that we can send them? If there's any problems that you can foresee? And then we could always email them. I don't see any
I
problems,
don't
but,
either.
I'm just looking at going, I'm glad I'm not biking this
Okay,
big
normally,
area here.
they'd have to reach out to police and fire anyhow, wouldn't they?
yes.
So, that's-
You know what, the only thing is, on the front, it talks about September 4th, and on the app, it says September 5th.
So clarify the date.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm thinking it's the 5th, it says it twice here.
I thought I said the ride is Saturday, September 17th, no?
but then if you look up here,
It's on the
Deb,
front.
it says date of event, 9/4.
Yeah,
So which date is it?
Detailed description, December 5th, 9 to 5, setup, 5 to 10, ceremony reception.
The
Yeah.
5th is, must be Labor Day. It's the Monday, the 4th is the Sunday.
4th is Sunday, Monday is the 5th, yeah.
So it says 9/4 on 3 documents.
The only way where it says,
On the special event, it's 9/4. On the application for sound,
Yeah, and if
it's
you look
9/4.
here-
They made it twice.
if you look here, it was 9/5 and they put a 4 over
And
it.
they also wrote it down next to it.
I think it really is 9/4.
And then on the next page, which is the indemnification agreement,
Yep.
it's 9/4.
4. I think the front is a mistake. Is this a large property?
15 acres, it says, on the application first page.
Because
Yeah, it must be
because
because,
there's 100 people coming, so.
and they're all parking on that land, so it must be big.
I don't see the error. Is it-
Right here. Detailed description.
Okay, all right.
So we'll just have to clarify
Okay.
that when they,
All right.
Okay, so we'll put this on the next agenda. Do I need a motion to put this on the next?
You need a motion to continue the public hearing
Thank you,
to the
Joe.
next meeting on,
but we never
July.
opened the public hearing. That's why I was curious. We
Well,
put this
'cause
on
you
for
have to con-
discussion.
Yeah, because
That's,
So it was advertised for today?
it was advertised for today, but it's not on the agenda.
okay, okay.
Okay, so I need a motion to continue the, obviously, this is one of the first times this has ever happened.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so I have a motion to continue this subject until our next meeting, which is July 25th. All those in favor? Did I get a motion? Yeah, all those in favor. Okay.
thank you.
And we can clarify it then.
Okay, so at this point, I would like to request that we move item 9D forward, please. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do
Second.
I have a second? Thank you. Town Administrator, discussion and possible vote regarding the appointment of special officers Jacob Baruder and Julia Vieira to serve as community service officers.
Madam President,
Yes.
you're still on board of licensing for item B. So could you do them right after that?
Yeah, I'll do it right after that. I was supposed to bring this up before we did anything.
Sorry,
Okay.
just hang on a minute.
You ready? Aren't you going to speak on this? Town
On B?
Administrator. 9D?
No, you want to, she
No,
wants to.
I was asking about
Here,
7B.
well, we just
All
brought
right,
it.
Want to do 7B next?
Yeah, because you're in that section of hearing, licensure. I didn't want to get it messed up with the minutes.
All right. You doing it for Joan's sake? Okay. All right. I'll be with you in a minute. Philomena Santos Higgins, Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, Mass, Rhode Island, Chapter 22, North Main Street, Natick, Mass. Request approval of special event license for Cycle for Life Ride through Tiverton on September 17th, 2022, from 7 to 3:30, subject to meeting all legal requirements. Hi, welcome. You've done this before?
11 years.
Yeah. Is there any questions from the council?
Madam President.
Yes.
Not a question, just an observation from, I think, maybe the last time you held this event, and it was on the same weekend as Pardon Gray Day. And a lot of your cyclists who were supposed to be going down around Sea Palette ended up coming up Main Road because the signage wasn't effective for them. So you might want to look at your signage that takes them down along the water.
So instead of taking the right?
So when you're coming up from Little Compton, and you're coming to right before Four Corners, I think you have them turning off as if they're going to Fogland Beach, which is,
Neck Road?
no, not Neck Road,
No, Pond Bridge.
Pond Bridge Road. I think that's where you have them turning off. Yeah, let me look at your map.
I've never had that problem.
Oh, I was doing the parking lot at that event, and I probably had 6 or 7 riders anyway. And I'm pretty sure it was your event, because you do it around the same time
Yes.
each year?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, we do it on.
Yeah, and Pardon Gray is usually around the same time each year.
Is it possible that I could get that in an email sent to me, exactly
Sure.
where you would want it to be? You know, where they're coming from and.
No, it's not even a matter of that, it's a matter of just making sure proper signage is
Signage,
there.
it's just
so
the
they don't-
signage.
So I think the problem was at Pond Bridge, there wasn't like an arrow that the cyclist should go
Or
down
if it
that
was
way
there, it
or
was not
whatever.
down, and they
It might
continued
have been
coming.
up
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
And they just kept coming straight, and they got all the way to Pond Gray, and they're like, we're supposed to turn left.
And I had no idea where to direct them.
If I could get that in an email,
Sure.
exactly, so that I give it to the guy
Yep.
that does the
Okay.
signing, because we've never had an issue. So,
Okay.
So they would have come out just north of Pond Gray, had they continued,
Right.
had they done the right.
Had they done the right.
They wouldn't have even saw Pond Gray.
Right, right.
Right, yeah.
It was more a matter of them not being sure where they were supposed to head next.
I've had a few strays from time to time, but, you know, that's why we have the sag wagons, we usually follow them all the time, and they find them. But this is new to me.
Yep.
You know, so I appreciate it.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
So the police chief has looked this over and it's all set? Okay. Any questions? Like to entertain a motion?
Move approval of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, Mass, Rhode Island Chapter request, of their request for a special event license for the Cycle for Life ride through Tiverton on September 17th, 2022, from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., subject to meeting all legal requirements.
Second.
Motion been made in second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Now I'm gonna,
You too.
go back to what I was doing. Town Administrator, discussion and possible vote regarding the appointment of special officers Jacob Arruda and Julia Vieira to serve as community service officers.
Okay. So, we've had a number of discussions about the status of the beaches, parks, and areas that need some oversight. The chief and Sergeant Ledoux have brought forth a couple of candidates to be our special resource officers to help monitor the beaches. And Johnny, you can weigh in at any time here, but we're looking to appoint them so we can get them down at the beaches and the parks.
And their hours will be,
So it'll vary. And I was just going to kind of give you a brief
Go ahead.
summary of what the job descriptions will be as according to basically what I came up with.
okay.
General summary is going to be Tiverton Police Department. So let me kind of lead in with this. Ultimately, they're going to be hopefully the first of more to come. And obviously, with the discussions that we had regarding the community policing division and those aspects of the police department, we want to team up with the high school. And what the high school is doing is they're looking at trying to get a program started, what's called First Responder and Public Safety Pathway. And it's classes that, starting as freshmen, you'll they'll be able to take that have to do with first responders or criminal justice, et cetera, and they'll be able to develop them as they move forward in their high school years, being able to take more of those courses as electives. And so what we would like to do is they'll be considered Tiverton Police Department Pathfinders, part of this pathway course. We'd like to get myself, SRO Raposa, would like to get immersed in those courses with the kids to do demonstrations, maybe even teach portions of the class, and hopefully, ultimately, get them on the road to where, right now, where Jake and Julia is already in a criminal justice program at the college that she's attending. Jake is going to be moving forward to that at the end of the summer. But it's almost kind of like, if you will, like a farming system.
That's what it is, which is
for,
okay.
For Tiverton residents that come from here and grow up here, and ultimately, hopefully, will work here. So, starting with Jake and Julia, we'd like to get them involved right now with the community, being out there, patrolling the beaches. They would basically be under my supervision. They'd be seasonal employees of the town of Tiverton. They would promote public safety, provide general public information and/or assistance, enforce town ordinances, basically focused on parking violations, and conduct beach patrols and assist with animal control issues. The duties and responsibilities would be to promote public safety, aid the general public requesting information. If I already said some of these, it's kind of just enforce town ordinance violations, promote, augment beach safety, be alert for conditions that may endanger public safety, deter criminal activity and ordinances violations, assist uniformed officers as necessary, assist the animal control officer, and perform special duties and tasks as directed by the community policing supervisor. They'd have to be 18 years of age or older, valid driver's license, have passed an extensive background investigation prior to their employment, good moral character judgment. They're going to possess exceptional verbal communication skills. And then just the requirements would be that they would be seniors or in continuing education with the Tiverton High School's Law and Public Safety Pathway Program, college student with a focus in criminal justice. And that's pretty much it. They would be part-time, and a part-time position include various days, evenings, to include weekends and holidays. Working environment, it's primarily outdoors, except in extreme weather conditions. They'll be available by radio or phone during normal working hours, and they could also be called in for like special events that the police department puts on as well.
Any questions? Donna?
What type of, what are they taught to be able to do this job? Because I don't, do I see it here?
No, actually, that's in the, that's in my, I don't know what you actually have. Is that that's the job description. So they also have the, should be in the policy. They'll be certified CPR and first aid. Ultimately, we'd like to get them certified in work zone, like details for like road work details and whatnot, as well as I'm going to personally train them on writing citations, parking violations, and things of that nature. So they'll be able to do the majority of like the basic things that.
So you already have job requirements for them?
Yeah, that should actually be under.
Is it here?
Job description.
I think it's in the policy. It's in the policy that I actually wrote. Hold on.
I think there's a
Duties and
separate description
responsibilities,
too.
job
Right.
requirements.
Yeah.
I read it somewhere.
It's in that.
Yeah,
I-
it's right.
Nine-
It's
nine
you
looks
know
like
it's
this, Donna.
It's in the policy. Is that the policy? It
Well,
should
this
be
is
in
the
there.
job description. Well, it says Pathfinder program. Is that different?
No, it's the
than
same
their-
thing.
Okay.
It's the same thing.
And then there's the policy too.
And it says what they're gonna
Job
do.
requirements.
It should be. It should be in the policy. It's. I just gotta find
It
it.
looks like this.
Well, it doesn't say how they're trained though. I mean,
Well,
So what type of training would you be asking about, Donna? Like crisis intervention, things like that?
what type of classes did they have that, so that they could do these job requirements? I guess that's what I'm asking, because I don't see that there's.
David Paul, Chris Gagner, which is one of our dispatchers, they're certified to provide CPR first aid certifications. So they're going to be. They haven't taken the class yet, but they're going to be certified as far as CPR and first aid, that they can render assistance if there's
Oh.
a situation.
All right. I guess I was just looking for a list of things to check off that they were gonna have.
So,
What-
so
what you
Don-
wanted
Donna,
to
if you look at the second page of the Pathfinder program, it does talk about Tiverton High School senior enrolled in Tiverton High School's Law and Public Safety Pathway Program, which really the front of that, I think, describes what that pathway program covers, right?
Is that under general summary?
Yeah, so it's the second page of that one. College student with a focus in criminal justice, then bi or multilingual preferred.
I know, but it's not telling me how they're gonna be trained.
No,
Well, no, but Officer Ledoux just said that he's gonna train them.
I just thought there would be something in front
It,
of me.
a lot of, I mean, it's basic, you know, so they're gonna be under my wing, and, well, obviously, there'll be a form of job training that, you know, they'll be provided prior to go to the beaches. I already told them that, you know, because they'll be permitted to drive one of the patrol vehicles that we use for details. So I'm gonna go out and make sure that they feel comfortable driving one of the Dodge Chargers. I'm a little upset. I thought I actually had the specific training in here, and I can't find it, but
That's all I
I'm
was
sure it's in
looking
here.
for.
yeah, so let me turn to both of our potential appointees. Either one of you start. What have you covered in your classes? Like in high school, I know, Jacob, you just finished high school. Where are you going to go to school? CCRI for criminal justice?
Yes.
And so what kind of classes what did your classes cover from a criminal justice perspective when you were in high school? Because you're in the pathway program, right?
Correct. So in high school,
Can you bring that microphone up closer, please?
we covered everything from street law to criminal law. It's everything like in a courtroom, what it's like on the street. Covered all the bases. Saw multiple point of views of cases. We had debates on multiple cases. We also did look into what it was like to be a police officer. So we did get a very good description of what it's like to be in the field of law.
Okay. And how about you, Julia? Because you just finished your
She's in
first
her-
first year, second year?
I'm going to my third year.
Third year.
Yeah. So I've been taking criminal justice classes for 2 years now, going on 3. I've taken a bunch of different classes: criminal law, criminal procedure, criminal investigations, which was actually taught by one of my nearby cities' police department ex-members. Just covering all different topics, the procedural side versus what would actually be happening in the field. Big range.
So as your training included how to deal with belligerent people on the beach? Anywhere, but
Belligerent people in general.
Wait till you meet these people.
And do either of you happen to speak Spanish? Because we have a lot of Spanish-speaking individuals who like to come and fish and the like, so it's always helpful, but not required. Okay. Does that help, Donna?
Is that,
It helped. I just thought
So
I'd
they
have something in
Yeah.
front of me.
Yeah,
well, I think what it is their background allows them to apply because they've had these courses, correct?
Yeah,
yes.
I did notice that. I just,
And
I'm
for whatever, I'm like looking through the policy, I could have sworn, and I know we discussed it, could have sworn I had it in either of the policy, the job description, as far as particular training, whether CPR, first aid, that's in the work zone.
I'm sure you'll.
So that's an
So
update.
that
That's
will
an
be,
update.
that will be an update.
So they'll be allowed to write tickets.
Yes, yep. And I'll go through that with them as far as the appropriate way to do so. And they will have the utmost support too, and we've already discussed, obviously, they can come into contact with people that can be relatively difficult, especially if they're issuing citations. So anytime that they need assistance from any of the officers that are on patrol, they will have direct radio contact with dispatch, and just, they're basically gonna be performing the same roles as Special Officer Sevigny and Mello for beach patrol. So they're gonna have all the same resources, and same deal goes as if there's any kind of violations or issues that come up and they're having difficulty with any kind of particular party, the officers on the road will respond down to the location and assist them,
I do have to tell you that Officer Savigny was on Facebook playing with children in the sand. You don't have to do that. He went a little
You can, but you don't.
You most
This
certainly can.
this weekend, I saw him playing with the kids in the sand. You don't
good
really.
reviews, though.
They got
Yes.
Yeah, got a lot of fingers up and
Anything will help bridge the
Thumbs up.
community.
thumbs up.
Thumbs
fingers
up.
Oh my God, those fingers up too loud.
But just so you know, it doesn't hurt. Sergeant Huber actually put in a, what was it, a complimentary review on Special Officer Bigney, so.
Yeah.
So that'll
That
go
was
up
all
and it'll
over
get.
Facebook this weekend, okay. All right, are you guys excited? You must be.
Good.
Question.
Any questions, Joe?
Sergeant Ledoux, how soon do you plan on putting them into service?
Tomorrow.
As-
Tonight, right now.
You guys are on the road right now. As soon as we can. Yeah, we'd like to as soon as we can. Now, and I wasn't sure, I was a little confused in communication with the chief. I wasn't sure if are they doing like a type of swearing or?
Joan will
oath?
probably swear them in
Okay,
You just have to make
when you're ready.
with me and I'll take care of it.
okay, perfect. Sounds good.
We'll do it
Okay.
that way. this
Yeah,
time.
that sounds good.
Any other questions?
No, I just,
Good
I think
luck.
it's a great win-win. We're bringing kids in from our community. I looked at both your resumes, very impressive. Lots of customer service and conflict resolution, because you will need it at the beach. But we really wanted to put more patrol at the beach to kind of protect our resources. So I think it's great, and you're giving back to your community, and hopefully you'll come back and be sworn officers at some point. So, thank you for
Yes,
doing this.
thank
That's what
you.
we're hoping,
Yes.
so.
I'd like to entertain a motion for appointment.
So
We
moved.
can do it together.
I think Joe,
So moved.
Did he say something? Oh,
All right, so the motion is to appoint special officers Jacob Arula and Julia Vieira to serve as community service officers.
I'll second it.
Motion made second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Congratulations.
Welcome.
Thank you, Sergeant, for doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and I will remember to go back to this. You guys sunstroke. Appointments and resignations, Juvenile Hearing Board, 5 members, 2 alternates, 3-year terms, 1 alternate vacancy. Sabrina McCarthy, 65 Laurel Street, requests appointment, term ending 10/15/2024.
Madam President,
Yes.
Sabrina called me tonight. She's got a stomach virus. She couldn't make it, so she said, but she is still interested. She'll make the next meeting.
Okay. So I'll have a motion to table.
so, Joe, you know Sabrina?
I don't know what she's
Oh,
called.
okay, oh, okay. Because if you did, my only question for her was, she talks about being able to make meetings if they're in Zoom, but we can't do meetings in Zoom anymore.
Right, right.
So,
That was my question also.
So we'll discuss it with her when
Yeah.
she appears.
Yep.
What time, when do they actually meet?
They don't meet
They don't meet
unless they have
unless it's
to.
absolutely necessary, yeah.
I don't think they've met in months. Correct. I think someone told me they haven't
I don't know.
met.
I'll talk
They haven't met in the last 2 months that I know of.
would John know?
That's good.
John,
John,
do you know when the last juvenile hearing board meeting was?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you have any idea when the last juvenile hearing board meeting was?
No.
long time, right?
I would assume so.
Yeah. Well, I think the chief told me this. I was talking to him about another subject, and he told me they haven't met
Well,
him.
it's an option for people to go to, but if it's always a good sign that no one's getting in
Oh,
trouble.
absolutely, absolutely.
Call me back about that elderly thing.
Yes, yeah, as a matter of fact, it's funny, because somebody came into the station today, so
Yeah, just call me back.
We're talking about
gotta get with
something
Humphreys and see
Yeah.
if he gets.
Yeah.
Look
All
at
right,
John.
thanks. No, I'm just telling him to call me or something.
All right, so I have a motion to continue.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Motion been made second. All those in favor? Okay. Town Administrator, discussion, possible vote to approve a partnership between the Tiverton Police Department and Newport County Mental Health.
So, again, John, come on up. Let's,
Good John today.
He's leaving already.
no, he's not. He knows this event.
He got cold feet now.
So, we've had a number of different discussions about this, and we have started the process. We've met with Newport County Mental Health a number of times, either by in person and by phone conference. We are not quite there, but we're pretty close to. We still need to put together like an MOU, but if you want to come on up and we can address any of the council's concerns to make sure that whatever we do, if they are supportive of this, that we incorporate whatever they need into the MOU so that it is exactly what the council wants as well too. Unfortunately, the chief couldn't be here tonight. He's tied up in Boston. I will say that Newport County Mental Health has been very, very receptive to working with us. It has been a while since we've had them in the local area. They have actually done yeoman's work over the last month and a half or so, now that we've reestablished that connection. But I think having a formal agreement where our staff are being trained as to what to do when they're confronted with things, where things can go, and having somebody from their agency on a regular basis helping with us at some of our entities in town. We have tried to cobble together a list of potential.
I'm currently in the
candidates.
works of
Yeah, the
working
terminology.
on that list. It's quite comprehensive and lengthy.
So
Um,
I'll let both of you speak to where we are with this, but it's
So so basically, since COVID hit, and we always have had, I don't want to say difficulties, but we've had a large portion of the calls for service that we respond to are dealing with individuals with behavioral and mental health, addiction issues, overdoses. And I'm sure you guys follow the news. Police officers aren't necessarily certified in these types of areas. We do our best when we get called out on these calls and situations, but oftentimes when you see departments, officers, towns, cities get into trouble is when we're confronted with a situation that we're not really quite sure what to do with. And with that, threats of our own personal safety, public safety, is that's what we're met with. And whereas a lot of these individuals are probably known by the officers, by the town, because it's something that we've dealt with on numerous occasions, dealt with them on numerous occasions. They haven't gotten the help that they need, and it's sometimes it's difficult being on patrol. You kind of throwing Band-Aids over things. Okay, we see this guy's or girl's got an issue. We need to get them to Newport Mental Health or Newport Hospital to do a mental health evaluation. And okay, now they're going on the rescue, and guess what? We're getting a call 2 days later for the same individual for the same thing, and it's a revolving door. So conversations that myself and the chief had, especially with certain situations and current events and around the country that I'm sure you guys have heard about and we read about oftentimes, is what can we do to kind of prevent, not necessarily prevent, what can we do to help the situation and move forward with these types of situations without it getting to the point where we're now dealing with someone who has barricaded themselves in with their family and and it happens, and it's happened here in town, and there's people on our radar that could very well be the next individual that would so that's where we got in contact with Newport Mental Health to try to come up with some type of plan, team that we can take care of these issues before they get out of control. I can't stress how much just being the patrol supervisor for the 4 to midnight shift for the last 2 years prior to Sergeant Huber taking over. Like I said, how many calls we deal with on a daily basis. I mean, sometimes you get a lucky night where you don't have to handle that, but I would say out of a 4-day rotation, probably 3 days out of those 4 days, you're dealing with some kind of behavioral, mental health, addiction type issue. So with that being said, just in the last month, Officer Huber, as a patrol supervisor, has worked hand in hand with Chris Bardello, who is representative from Newport Mental Health, that also works the same shift hours. So I wanted him to kind of speak in regards to some of the experiences that he's had since we've become more in union, and what we'd like to do, kind of moving forward, what the whole purpose of this is. And I have an experience that I had just recently in one of these situations that I'll share with you as well before we let Newport Mental Health go into the nitty-gritty of things. Sergeant, if you want to.
How's it going, everyone? I know what you're all thinking. I'm not the third person going through the Pathfinder program. I know it's super young.
I was thinking that now.
For those of you who haven't met me, I'm Sergeant Ryan Huber. I'm currently the 4 p.m. to midnight patrol sergeant. I've been on that shift. I've worked for John for several years. I've been on it for the past 4 or 5 years. I would like to start by commending the efforts and relationship our department has built with Newport Mental Health. Since being promoted in May, I've personally used the services that they provide on 3 occasions. I'm going to go through several scenarios for you guys. The last one, John can kind of give you more information as he did some follow-up work. In June, Officer Martin, who works for me, came to me in regard to a female who he was attempting to obtain a formal statement from in regard to a high-stress scenario that we dealt with the evening prior. While providing a statement, the female displayed manic behaviors and was unable to provide any coherent statements or thoughts. After further review of her most recent contacts with our department, I found that the female was previously diagnosed with bipolar disorder and frequently forgets to take her medication. After this review was determined by Deputy Chief Costa and myself that the female was in need of medical treatment. Shortly after, I contacted Newport Mental Health, and Chris Bardello, who works during my hours, immediately responded. After a brief contact with the female party, Mr. Spardello filled out an application for an emergency certification, and the female was transported to Newport Mental Hospital. The one part that made me feel good is several weeks later, I was working a casino detail. It was maybe a Saturday night, I'm not really sure, and a female came up to me. I wasn't really thinking, my mind was kind of shut off. It was probably like 2 a.m. She was well dressed, and it was actually the female who I spoke about. She came up to me thanking me for the services that we got for her. She said that she wasn't taking her medications, and on top of the other medications that she takes for her MS and whatnot, that was causing her to act out and act abnormally. So that was a warming situation. Obviously, it's nice to see a positive come out of that, as much as we see negatives on a daily basis. The second scenario, several weeks later, Officer De Silva and I handled a similar matter involving a male party who we frequently deal with. We've probably dealt with him 30 times in the past 2 or 3 months. On the date that we went there, while speaking with him, several neighbors, I determined that he was in need of a mental health evaluation. He definitely was at harm for himself and his neighbors. I again contacted Chris from Newport Mental Health, who responded to the residents with us. Once he arrived, the male party began to display different behaviors and mannerisms and personalities. It was actually quite scary. He was on the ground, crying, freaking out. Chris again filled out the necessary paperwork, and we immediately got him the necessary help that he needed. And hopefully, I haven't seen him since, but hopefully he is doing better, because he did need those services. The last story happened probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's in regard to a male party who resides in town who is a Marine. He's a former Marine. Are you never not a Marine?
No, we're always.
Oh, okay. So he's a military vet. He actually contacted the VA hospital in regard to him having thoughts about harming himself. We responded to the residents and speaking with him. He vocalized his displeasure for obviously the services that he's been provided by the VA hospital, and advised me and Officer De Silva, who's also a vet, about his diagnosis of PTSD and schizophrenia. And he was very receptive, and he wanted to get the help. He wasn't at harm to himself or his mother. After speaking with both of them, we did contact Chris Bardella, who was right there to help us and really wanted to reach out immediately and get him the help that he needed. I then reached out to Sergeant Ledoux here, knowing that this male party's birthday was several weeks later, and just to do a follow-up, because his initial report was he was thinking about harming himself on his birthday. So given the military experience that John has, I figured he can reach out and do a follow-up, which he did, and he can kind of get into more detail about that in a little bit. I hope these 3 scenarios help shed some light on what we do in our patrol division on a daily basis. We're constantly making contact with parties who suffer from mental health disorders and drug addiction. I don't know if you guys are aware, we recently paired up with East Bay Recovery Center, and I think it's important to have the resources such as them and Newport Mental Health, given the high rates of mental health issues and substance abuse throughout the country and our town. I can say as an officer and as a department, we all want to make a difference in our community, which I'm sure all of you have seen with the efforts that we have made in the past several years with our community policing division. Thank you all for your time. Hopefully this was helpful.
Extremely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am a stand-up comedian in my free time, so.
So real quick, I'm just going to touch upon a follow-up as far as the situation, the last situation that Ryan, Sergeant Huber, talked about. So this particular veteran, Marine veteran, I think it was the 28th of June that this occurred, and his birthday was the 5th, so he was contemplating harming himself on his birthday. So the whole point of community policing division, right, which I'm basically embodying by myself right now, is for the patrol officers to go out and do what they need to do on that particular situation at that particular time. And then moving forward, what I envision is, obviously with the help of Newport Mental Health, me personally or my division, to be able to follow up and reach out to these individuals after the fact. Because, I mean, it's great, oh yeah, okay, hey, send you off to the hospital. But then if there's no follow-up, that's where it becomes difficult, and we start seeing the revolving door and these situations reoccurring over and over and over again. So for instance, this was, I thought, just a great example of why this works. I went on July 5th to this individual's home, knocked on the door. Mom was sitting in like the screen porch. Had no idea who I was, obviously. So I introduced myself. I said, I'm Sergeant Ledoux with the Tiverton Police Department. I know that we had come and visited you guys a couple days ago because so and so was having a difficult time. I'm here to merely just see how he's doing and wish him a happy birthday. And his mom just automatically filled up and came over, opened the door, gave me a hug, and which was great. And I was just like, okay. And she's like, yeah, come right in. He's doing well. He'll so much love this. Come right. She brought me into the house. You got a visitor. He was in his bedroom, and he comes out, and again, I was just like, hey, so I just wanted to come check on you, see how you're doing. What's if you're doing okay, and have you talked to anybody? What steps have you done to move forward and trying and also I just want to say happy birthday. And then we obviously got into the conversation that both Marines, and so there was that connection that was made, and there was a moment where it's a police officer, but a human being, connecting with another human being. And it wasn't just, I see this person at their worst time in their life, and we're just gonna do what we need to do to move on to the next call. There's a follow-up, and so I think if we can continue this type of cycle and, with the help of Newport Mental Health and move forward, I think we're going to see a tremendous difference in these calls, and they may not decrease, because I think there's always going to be, you know, a high volume of mental health, behavioral health related calls for service, but I think we may see a difference in the same faces that we see all the time. You know, if hopefully they're getting the help that they need, we can follow up and make sure that they're following through, and they can feel confident and comfortable in the police department knowing that we're not there to like be like this, you know, the big bad scary uniformed people that are gonna go throw them in, you know, a straitjacket and padded room. You know, we're there for the resource of being able to help, and that goes for behavioral, mental, and addiction issues as well. So with that, I'll let our friends from Newport Mental Health get into the nitty-gritty of things.
You don't mind if I sit, do you?
No. That's why the seats are there.
It started at 7 o'clock this morning, so, can you hear me?
Yes.
So, I'm thinking that you might want to know what the sort of program elements are and some of the basics on how this might work. Oh, I'm sorry.
I apologize.
Apologize. Dana Gladstein, I'm the Executive Vice President for Newport Mental Health. Would that be
Please.
helpful? So what we've been working on is a specialized program for the community of Tiverton, because all the communities that we work with are different and unique, and your community has ties to Massachusetts and resources there that we want to make sure that each individual that we serve has a unique recovery plan that encompasses their community of origin and their service providers, which we don't really have that in place yet. So we met several times and we came up with a five component plan for this first year. One is training for the police and the dispatchers, so that their first touches with the folks that have behavioral health issues can be as positive as possible. So we talk about de-escalation, which basically means they're going to learn how we would talk to someone when someone calls and says, I need help, right? The second is we have had conversations and verbal commitments. We're going to do an MOU if this is approved with the senior center, the Bourne Mill, the police department, so that we're on site in the community at those different places. Because what we found at Newport Mental Health and the evidence shows across the nation is that there's probably 20% of the folks that take up 80% of the resources. And because the resources aren't coordinated and the navigation of those resources is not designed for someone with mental illness or addiction, right? It's, you might want to think about your own experiences with your own healthcare providers and then multiply that by 1,000, right, in terms of complications. So what we're proposing is something that we've done in other communities, is to create a network of providers where these folks show up. There's multiple touches, right? And we're going to dedicate staff time to that. And also, for us to learn, we're going to do ride-alongs with the police department so that we can navigate through our next sort of, the future of mobile treatment in the state of Rhode Island is going to be bringing in a lot more resources, and we're going to be ahead of the game because with this project, we're going to get data. We're going to test out some assumptions for interventions that we think would have worked in other places, and we're going to have accessibility that is not, it's very different for us to come out, like Chris is coming out, Chris Bardella, to work with the police on these cases, which we would do anyways. This is our normal work. That's different than having a person available when someone has a question.
when someone shows up and they're food insecure, right? They have mental illness and they're food insecure. There's evictions. There's like 14 evictions a year, just from the Bourne Mills. Most of those have to do with untreated behavioral health issues. Every time someone's evicted, they're on the street, then there's another whole 100 calls a year because they're in the, they're on the street, they're on the properties, they're, trying to live, but not necessarily, following the law all the time. Or, people in the community might see them and be scared, even though they're not going to hurt them, but still there's a perception there. So what we're hoping is through the training, the on-site work, the ride-alongs, and in addition to that, we've already started a care coordination meeting, which is going to take some work so that we can get the right people to the table. But we have a lot of experience in getting better outcomes when all of the providers that have a pathway for these folks are sitting at the same table, talking at the same time. If you do it in a hub and spoke, it's like 5 months between the person gets us. Everybody's still working on it, but those 5 months could be another 25 calls, and there could be calls that end up in creating more danger for the police and for the folks that we're serving.
Are you working with the hospitals, the local hospitals also, because they're very strained with mental health issues there also?
Yeah, so we have a no wrong door committee that the hospital sits on, and any case, so you can see how the networking is starting to build. Any case that comes through this initiative, that comes to light, that is considered complex and would need like a Kodak, an addiction or a medical assisted treatment, or let's get the ED to call us when they show up there so that they don't release them into the community and then the police get called again. So that's how that will work.
So is your focus with Newport Hospital right now only?
Right now,
Okay.
but
Because right now, it's Charlton or St. Anne's usually.
right.
That's kind of that unique.
Yeah.
Right.
Crossing the lines.
We're opening those doors.
And if I
Right.
could step in, anytime we use St. Anne's or Charlton, most likely an hour or two later, we're seeing that same person again. So
Exactly.
when we bring them to Newport, we know they're going to get the necessary help they need.
And it
Right, and
doesn't-
I think part of it is what you had just said, indicated, is it's the difference between when you transport them or some other way they get to Charlton or St. Anne's, and there's no connection there. But I understand that there's groundwork that needs to be laid.
Building that collaboration is
Right.
part of this process.
Yeah, I think we want to keep people out of the emergency rooms, just like we want to keep them from calling the police when it's really something they could call their counselor for.
Yeah.
Emergency services in community mental health used to be, I've been around for a long time, and I've worked in many states. It used to be a full wraparound. You had case managers, you had peers, you had crisis workers, crisis apartments, you had this whole network of care that could be provided to children and families. That went away
I know.
a while ago, and now the state and the federal government is working on rebuilding it. It's not good that we haven't had it. We haven't had about 10% of our costs for mobile treatment are covered by insurance. Like, it's just, we can't bill, we're like really stuck. We have two full-time workers during the day and one full-time worker at night. Everybody else is on call. That's all we can afford to deliver. With this project, we'll be able to get out. We know we need to be in Tiverton, but we need to get out ahead of it in Tiverton so that as the resources come in, we'll have first of all, the relationships are very, very important. We have to figure out how to, use the resources that the folks here naturally use. So if it's St. Anne's and they go to St. Anne's, how do we, does St. Anne's social worker come to one of our meetings? Do we get a hospital discharge planner that goes out to them? There's so many different models we could use. Or we try to figure out how they all go to Newport, or most of them, 80%. You know what I mean? So without starting this, we won't know the answers to any of those questions.
Are you, will you be connected into the 988 system when it
Yes.
starts up?
Yep.
Okay.
So the 988 infrastructure is being built this year, starting July.
And
have.
I apologize if many people might not know what that is. I do because I work in the field. So you might want to explain what that is.
So it's a call center for behavioral health. The state is, in the first year, has the charge to develop the actual physical call center, the staffing, and to start taking the calls, do the training. In year 2, actually integrate the behavioral health services component. So they'll, at some point, and we're at the table for all of these discussions. In fact, we're in early negotiations for a mobile treatment for adults.
Good.
For all of East Bay, so it'll be Newport County, East Bay, to do mobile treatment for, like I said, for adults. And then it's too bad that the kids system and the adult system and the children's system is kind of like, they're both developing, but they're not on par, right? So the adult system's pushed out first, and there's gonna be money for the children's system, but it's coming in a little later. We service adults and children, so we don't have a lot of services for children, because there isn't funding
There isn't
for it,
any, no.
right? But if a family, family work is really important, right? Because when you do recovery planning, you want the natural supports for the identified client to be stronger and able to support that person. Integrate them in natural supports for a young person is a school department, right? How do we integrate kids into school departments so that it's successful? How do we have a healthy transitions program for adolescents and young adults who are having like symptoms that look like they're gonna have serious mental illness if we don't intervene early? So that program is all over the state. Maybe we need more beds for that program, not beds, more slots for that
So are you
program.
using the same model that Woonsocket is using at Community Care Alliance for healthy transitions?
Healthy transitions, yeah.
All right, so you're doing that at your agency right now, too?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah,
Well,
we
I
have
thi-
about 52 clients. We're hoping to get 100.
good.
Well, I think that, I was an emergency room nurse for 15 years. I think that's part of the problem too, that there's no beds available, and they sit there in the emergency room for days and days, and finally are released because there's nowhere. They're better, they're not as manic, they're getting their meds, and they leave. And I think that's half the problem, is there isn't beds available anywhere.
Yeah, and I don't know if we'll ever have enough beds,
I
but
don't-
we
yeah.
gotta do the community services as soon as we can, because there's the outcomes for a 12-year-old who's getting into trouble, who stays in the community-based system, the return on investment for that person is like, the trajectory is 100 times better than the person that goes to higher levels of care. Once they start using inpatient units, it becomes part of the system of care, and then they get boxed into that, right? So we want to try, this initiative is on cutting edge of best practice, because we want to try to integrate services within each community so that anyone can have, just like someone has diabetes, right? A lot of people have diabetes. I know my husband doesn't follow his diet, right? There's no one going out after him for that, right?
Right.
Some of this, so because there's behavioral components to, some of the issues, doesn't mean we can't follow back best practice, which is really working at the community level, being there for the community. The other thing is each person comes with individual issues, right? So like we have an older adults program, a lot of those folks have complex medical needs. So we have integrated health homes that we can put them on. Now the integrated health homes are already funded. We got to create a pathway to the integrated health homes, and then we can measure how many people in this area in Tiverton actually would need an integrated health home. And is it a mental health integrated health home, or an addiction, or a health? And we can start looking at that based on data and figuring out what this pilot could drive to for sustainable services, for much broader services.
This is all great.
This is great. We had a 9-year-old in our ED for 47 days
Oh, yeah.
because there was no place for that child to go.
Yep.
And that was not the first visit.
And that's many stories like that.
Yeah, I was do you guys remember St. Joseph Hospital on Broadway?
Yeah.
I was the first social worker on that team. And I did my social work internship there, and I'm still good colleagues with who my supervisor was, and he jokes because he said there never was a position for a social worker in the ED until you nagged me enough. So that, because it was needed.
Definitely.
Right? And so then it wasn't me who did it, but then, the trend, we went to Rhode Island Hospital, and then we started creating more systems of care around these folks that showed up at the ED. But there's lots of other ways, they don't have to all go to the ED
Right.
either.
Right.
Right? There's lots
No,
of.
but many of them do.
They do, because there's no resources.
Right.
And if there are resources, it's usually a money thing, but if there are resources, we don't always know how to connect to them. And they go out. The hospital I work in, we have an addiction, a detox, 35-bed detox unit. They just keep rolling out and coming back right through the doors again. The police bring them, they know them. So it's getting them those services where they need to be and pigeonholing them to the right places.
Yeah. And I think, well, I appreciate that a lot of people tend to go north. I think it's critical that as much as possible we can get them connected to Rhode Island resources, because as a Rhode Island resident, it gives them more access to
More
things that
access.
don't cost, aren't insurance-based, don't cost. I'm thinking of family care community partnerships for families, and DCOF is coming out with their Families First funded programs
Yep.
soon, which will be helpful too. And all those things will help with that process.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the pathway for the Tiverton community is got to be opened up for access for all of this, and not on the sidelines, right? And if we do our job right, they will choose us.
Well, and I will tell you that I tried a connection with a different agency many years ago when I was on the school committee, and it only lasted for a little bit because they didn't come off the island that much. I won't say who that was, but so I appreciate you coming off the island.
Yeah, I don't live on the island, so I'm off and on all day long.
So what do you need from?
So, again, it's just, we're still somewhat at a preliminary stage. We do need to create an MOU among the agencies. And I have started the exploration of the pharmaceutical funds, the opioid monies, as a funding source for this. And I think because these people live in this community, and they deserve to have some of the resources put back towards them. We've all recognized, at least over the last couple of years with COVID, that we've seen a ton of mental health issues around the community, that the police are strapped with trying to get this, deal with this. They deal with it as a case by case, but they're not in this field. It's not what they do. And so it becomes a lost art is to try to get these people the right help they need. So I do think it's a very worthwhile program to try to put together for this community.
This is what I envisioned with this program. I could not be, this is so in my wheelhouse. I could not be more delighted with this.
We're basically looking for approval to move forward.
So moved.
Approval to move
Second.
forward. Second.
Well,
Any further?
I do have to ask something.
Oh, no, I asked.
No, I'm gonna say any further discussion.
Oh.
Go ahead, Donna. I say it every time. Go ahead.
I think what has to be discussed, that's not being discussed, is when we run out of the opioid funds or the opera funds, how are we gonna pay for this? it's $1,000 a week, so that's $52,000 extra. There's already an awful lot of money on the line for the program in general, because we picked up on that grant, which I think in the third or fourth year is close to $500,000. So I do have to be concerned. I was wondering if, I mean, you can use these funds if you want, but going forward, how are we going to pay for this? How is it going to be affordable? Everything has to be affordable. Are we going to use insurances to pay for it? I just think that needs to be part of the conversation.
Well,
Insurances don't pay for
right
this.
now, there's,
Insurance isn't gonna pay for it.
yeah, right now, there's both federal and state dollars that are, being dedicated to building mobile treatment for the state of Rhode Island. So I think there's so many unknowns about what that means. Like I said, we're in early negotiations. We don't know what the staffing's gonna look like. But I think that this is the time to do this, and then we should have a like any program that I develop, we have to have a sustainability plan, right? Because when you have grant funds, they don't, then you hit a cliff if you don't have a sustainability plan. My guess is it'll be a combination of things. But if we get the outcomes that we're looking for, and we can show that we're making an impact, I think that we'll have to figure out what the sustainability plan will be as part of the next year, based on some of the data that we collect, right? So some of it could be federal funds, state funds, some
Insurances.
little tiny bit insurance. Let's see
Grants.
what.
Future grants, maybe.
Yeah, future grants. Let's see what Medicare, Medicaid, and duals come up with their new plans. We have to stay open to all of those options so that we do have a sustainability plan. This is important for every community. We're doing this even within Newport. Like we have segments of Newport that are much more concentrated with folks that could use our services that we're not serving. We're underserving. So we're also developing partnerships with, for instance, Donovan Manor, which is an elderly housing that Newport Housing runs, so that we can be there in that area for folks, do the outreach and engagement, provide the services, and hopefully prevent evictions. Now, this is another thing I'm thinking about to answer your question. We also just became a certified, under EOHHS, a certified housing stabilization provider. So if a lot of the groundwork and movement happens in the housing, any of that, we could look at future billing for some of that. So we're gonna have to be creative. There's not gonna be a silver bullet, but
I think we're first out of the gate, and we're the first ones trying to do this. It's everybody's talked about defunding the police because these services aren't out there in the communities. We're not doing things as a community. It's not the police's fault. Obviously, we all know that, but it's very easy to label something, and until we try to do something beneficial for our constituents, it's never gonna come to a head where we can put together a formalized plan, have metrics, and have different billing mechanisms to ensure this can be sustained. So we are at the very forefront of this, and I think if you guys could do it, it'll be wonderful, but.
Thank you.
thank you.
So I have a motion to continue forward and improve the process. And I have a second. Mike?
Oh, I think it was
No, I
seconded.
did have a
Deb
second.
seconded.
Yeah,
I thought you were
I said I
taking.
have a second.
Oh, no, I thought you were taking a vote. I'm sorry. That's why I put my hand.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay.
Thank you. Thank
so
you all.
much. Thank you.
And also, I'd like to formally invite everybody here, National Night Out, it's gonna be July 30th after the parade.
I'm away.
Wadsmith is talking crazy stuff about beating Tiverton.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there.
Charity softball game.
And if you guys want to start a softball team, let me know.
Yeah, it would be great if you guys wanted to do softball team.
Madam,
Thank you, thank you.
can I move
Thank
another
you.
item
Thank
so
you.
John- while John's here?
Support.
So I'd like to make a motion that we move item, John, don't, E, 9E, to the top of the agenda.
Oh, he wasn't here for this one, I'll handle this.
Oh, he's not here for that one, okay.
Stay.
You can't stay, I mean, so this is, I know there's a lot of paper in here. The state, we had talked a number of times when we talked about opera monies.
Let me, hang on, I don't think we got a second or voted
Well,
on
it
that.
falls after this, we just did D.
No, we have to go back to
I
B.
need
Oh,
to-
I'm sorry, I thought you did.
Wait, everybody wait a minute. So Mike wants to move 90 up. He made a motion. Do I
Okay,
have
all
a
right.
second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion been made, second. All those in favor? Okay.
Now,
I didn't realize we missed one, I'm sorry, I apologize.
We missed two so far.
Two.
So,
They're doing this just because they have.
I know, and I apologize for that.
Sunstroke.
So, there's a policy now in place for all grants that come before the town council.
Yes.
During our opera discussions, we had talked about, upgrading our IT infrastructure because things were coming. This is one of them that's coming. It's body worn cameras. The state has a program for us to apply for this grant. I don't believe there's a match for this at the moment.
I couldn't see that there was.
There isn't. We're going, the chief wants to apply for the state-sponsored grant. There's a federal one as well, but the federal one has some restrictions to it. The state one will cover what we need, or what they're gonna authorize by this grant process. He wants to get the application in, and he wanted to make sure he could get council approval to do that. But it's our understanding there is no match to this grant from the state, police, is that all the chiefs, Chiefs Association, and from Sid Wardell, who's the
You're doing good, John.
I'm walking into this one.
So I gave you what the chief gave me as to what it represents, and how the process is, and what the grant application would look like.
So I asked about this when the governor talked about, all these towns and we weren't listed, and I wasn't happy with that, but I thought that we did not have the internet capabilities.
We will, by the time this is here.
We will.
That was one of the items that we've approved. It was a contract with Ocean to provide broadband to the police department. That will provide the bandwidth for this.
So they only need it in the police department then? It
That's
doesn't
one
have
of the
to be
reasons why
town-
we did it at the police department, because they don't have the
So it
broadband.
doesn't have to be town-wide then?
No,
Okay,
because they'll get their connection through the cars. And
all right. I was trying to get it before, but they said it wouldn't work.
I just have,
go ahead, Donna. Other questions? Yeah, go ahead. Donna? Yeah, go ahead, go ahead, sorry.
I thought you were making me wait.
Oh, no.
Okay. Going through this, I was wondering, what policies must we, it's saying we have to adopt the policies.
So the Attorney General has put out policies as part of this, because he's funding this through one of his initiatives. So the Attorney General's already established policies for all the cities and towns to have to follow.
So you either accept those
You
policies?
will accept those policies,
Okay, all right. This is for 5 years,
yes.
and I don't know how to figure out the total award because it's not,
It'll be dependent upon the number of officers that they allow to have. Not every officer is gonna have a body-worn camera.
okay.
I believe it's based on the number of people, the number of staff who are working on a shift, and I think that gets transferable.
Right.
Correct?
It looks like you get extra money for that.
So there is extra money for the administration to set up the storage and some other things related to the video itself.
Looks like there's a lot of documentation. It's very, you have to keep proof of expenditure, documentation. Who's going to maintain this? The chief, the treasurer? You have to have.
Yeah. It'll be the chief, his assistant, the treasurer's office, and myself
Yeah, it
will ensure
really
that we can.
looks very involved.
It is.
That's
And it-
actually very normal with Department of Justice money.
It is.
It's not in the community police policy.
Yeah, I'm like,
So
when's it-
you're not doing it,
I'm not
right?
tracking any.
No, they are very stringent about what you can and can't do.
One of the things I noticed that it said was it doesn't cover all the costs, so it's saying you might apply for a BWC grant. What are the extra costs? I don't see a list or a total. So, so I just have no idea what that means.
So if there, some of the other costs would be, what we're already mitigating, I would believe, would be if your system isn't capable enough of running the bandwidth to operate. They're not gonna cover that. They're gonna give you the body-worn camera, they're gonna give you some administrative issues to deal with that, and they're gonna give you some monies to deal with the storage and transmission of it. But they're not gonna pay to upgrade your entire IT infrastructure so that you can do it. So-
Which we're already doing,
Which
right?
we're already in the process of doing.
Okay, all right. But I guess you can, what is the BWC?
Body-worn camera is BWC.
Is that federal program you were talking about?
That is the federal program, correct. But the state has its own
Oh.
program.
It says it right here. Okay. Yeah, I was just interested how much more it was gonna cost the town and what it was gonna add to the budget.
So we just did a significant, they haven't finished the project yet, but I think it was like $100,000 that we just did for the broadband. I will look to see, I believe we upgraded his server last year. The only thing that we may have to do is, which we haven't done anywhere in this community, is do a replication system off-site somewhere that would be for disaster recovery. That's not required in this, but it would behoove us to do that. And that was part of the American Recovery Program I put together about upgrading IT infrastructure. That's a piece that I haven't put before you yet, because I don't have all of the quotes.
Okay, okay.
But that's, again, part of getting these systems up to be more modern than 2008 or 2010.
All right. That's it, thank you.
Any other council members? Sir, did you have some questions you wanted? If you can come up to, you can either stand or sit next to Officer Ledoux, and just state your name, please.
My name's Robert Homer, and my question is, are these cameras going to be turned on and off at the officer's discretion, or are these cameras going to be on no matter what all the time? Is there going to be an ability to edit this, or, is it going to be raw footage?
So, do you have the?
So
Because, I mean,
I have some of the information.
Because it's a waste of time if you can turn them on and off.
I have an understanding of how it's supposed to be connected from what
John.
Oh, sorry. And correct me if I'm wrong, Scott. Basically, it's gonna be attached to any of our devices that, whether it's our firearm, our taser, I believe our radio, and once any of that stuff is keyed, it automatically starts transmitting, and we don't, once that situation's over and stuff is put back, or then I think it's, but I don't think we have.
But it wouldn't record until that point. So anything that happened before that,
So,
it wouldn't be
yeah,
recorded.
It's not gonna be an ongoing recording where like, it's gonna record everything like us patrolling or whatnot. There's gonna be an activation of some sort, and I don't know, I'm giving you very bare bones from what I understand, but.
I don't see how that's useful. I mean, I think it's a waste of money if, in resources, if it's something that's not going to be on for the, if me and the sergeant were to have an interaction and it's not going to record it from beginning to end,
And don't quote me as far as how it, because I have a very minimal understanding. I'm trying to help you and answer your question as far as from what I understand, but it could, I don't want to misspeak either.
I think it's great protection for the town. I think it's great protection for the police. It'll back them up in certain situations. But at the same time, I just, there's been instances where, I don't want to sit here and trash good police officers and, make it sound like we have a bad police department, but, between the gasoline sergeant and the cocaine detective, I mean, like, the track record hasn't been all that great, over the years, over and over again. And what I'm getting at is, not all of them have proved themselves to be trustworthy. I've had some experiences, and if you look at my, if you look at me, I don't come on, I'm not pretending to be, an angel, and I've never had a brush with the law before, But if it's not recording the interaction from beginning to end, I just think it's a waste of money and time, and it's just a feel-good thing. That's, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think that's an interesting point, but the thing is we don't know what the protocols are from the Attorney General yet, do we?
I think the chief has all the protocols. They're very extensive. And I do believe that they can't edit the video. They don't have control once it's keyed on, that it comes on. The issue is it's not to be videotaped the minute they put it on until the end of the day, for a variety of reasons. There are privacy issues that the individual has as a police officer, and just take care of your body is one. So it doesn't need to be running all the time. That's why they have specific keys that key them on, whether it's you touch a gun or it's, something in the vehicle. There are a number of reasons on why it comes on. It is state-of-the-art. They are I think they're looking at one of the most proficient systems that are out there right now. It does marry up with the taser systems that we currently use. I don't have an issue with it. I do know that people have concerns about being videotaped. I don't believe there's issues with this, and there are strict protocols on how it's going to be managed.
Well,
I was just going to also say, if the footage was to record from the moment we put it on to the time our shift ended, that's transmitting and collecting all that data, and that's going to be stored somewhere, and that's going to cost an exorbitant amount of money to try to save all that data from a 8-hour shift times 3 shifts times 24 different patrol officers that are wearing these things. So that's why they are queued. And then again, I know the chief had briefly talked to me about how it works, and I'm not technical at all.
So I know the Attorney General's office, because 30 years of working there, that they have an association of attorneys generals. I would be positive that the Attorney General and his staff looked at case law after case law of body-worn camera issues, cases that they've lost, issues that have to do with privacy, First Amendment, Seventh Amendment rights. All those things were incorporated into the policies and procedures. They wouldn't have put this out if they didn't go through it.
Well, I understand that, Chris, but I don't have that in front of me. I don't know how long or how frequently the camera will be on. Those are really unanswered questions to me. I feel like I'm under the gun because it's saying this has to be done by the 16th, and yet I don't have the answers to those questions that this gentleman did bring up. I think it's very important because it's a grant, but we will be, spending money at some point whenever the grant gives out after 5 years. But I think people in the town have to feel comfortable with how it's being done, how they're being recorded, how the police are recording it, when it goes on, when it goes off. If there's a feeling of distrust, that can be a problem. That's how it is for me. I just don't have enough answers to these questions.
Anyone else?
So it's a manual turn on, or it's?
There's unanswered questions.
I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
So there are sensors in your gun belt, on your mic, on your.
That activate it.
Yeah.
So I don't think the individual officer has the ability to just turn it on and shut it off at when. It all.
Kind of unanswered,
It's all
though.
based off of your tools, if you will.
But you don't have to pull your gun out for it to
No,
start.
I was just using that as an example. That's
Right.
one of the things that it would automatically activate. Would
Yeah.
activate it.
But
so
if you pulled someone over, getting out of the vehicle,
could be,
they probably.
would be something like that. It's going to record, and I know back in the day when they had the cruiser cameras, even though before it even actually, I'm gonna try to explain this. Before it was actually activated, it's always technically recording. It's just not downloading it, if you will. So as soon as you put your sirens on, just use this as an example, it recorded, say 20 seconds prior to and it picks up that and downloaded that 20 seconds prior to you even actually activating your sirens. And then same as when you deactivate it, records 20 minutes after or 20 seconds after. And don't, I'm throwing numbers out, I'm
Right,
just
right.
trying to explain it. So I'm assuming that there's gonna be something similar as far as, and I'm not
Wasn't
the
prepared
technical
to do this at
guru,
all.
Right.
you know, yeah.
This wasn't your shtick for
I'm
tonight.
trying to help you guys understand based off of the knowledge that I have, I mean, and I'm not an expert at all, but I'm sure that I know the one that the chief was looking at is like, was one of a nice version where it would take care of those questions. Not a lot of officers love the fact of being recorded, you know, but unfortunately, I think it's something that's important
Well,
because
I was thinking
nine
that too.
times out of 10,
The citizen might not be, like, being recorded, but the officer might not either, so
right,
it's a double-edged sword.
correct. But it's probably something that definitely
It's necessary.
should happen and is necessary, you know, to protect the officer of the town, and, you know, the citizen as well, you know, so.
All right, any further questions? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I move we approve the police chief's request to apply for state grant related to body worn cameras.
Have a second.
Second.
Motion been made and second by Council Perry. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
You want to stay for something else?
No.
Mike might be able to find
I gotta
something
get
for
my
you.
Maybe we could find you a softball team.
What, listen.
Thank you.
You
Thank you.
guys wanna play, just email me.
I'm gonna come and watch.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Cheer you on.
It's gonna be fun.
It'll be
It's
fun.
gonna be fun.
I know.
Portsmouth's already talking stuff on Facebook.
Okay. Keep rubbing it in.
We're trying to get the fire department to.
Oh, they won't do it, yeah.
But, you know.
I don't know, the acting chief's just looking at you. All right, we're gonna go back to 9B. Councilor Cook, discussion and possible vote by the council, town administrator, and the acting fire chief to approve a resolution in support of the lifeguards being honorary members of the fire department. Donna?
Thank you. I have been thinking about this for quite a while as another resource. There's a contingency of young people that are already interested in being first responders, CPR, first aid, and actually putting their life on the line to save people. So I decided, I came up with this, I think, creative idea. I don't know if it'll work or not, but discussion by the council, this I made a mistake on because the town administrator and acting chief can't vote, but anyway. Discussion by the council, town administrator, and acting fire chief to approve a resolution in support of lifeguards becoming honorary members of the fire department. The fire department has had a continued problem of hiring and retaining firefighters. Lifeguards are first responders, rescuers that save lives. By performing this job, they put their own lives in danger. Lifeguards are licensed by the state and must qualify in CPR, first aid, drowning prevention, and life-saving. Lifeguards are already serving the public safety and would be another resource to look to and encourage becoming a member of the fire department. By offering the honorary membership, this might possibly give them a reason to become a lifeguard or the portal to a new career. Please consider, I also talked about the wage. Please consider a minimum hourly pay rate of probationary firefighter pay for lifeguards first year and reasonable increases each year by returning. My resolution,
I don't know if we need to read the whole thing.
should I read it?
Well, I think I'm going to interrupt because during the agenda meeting, this proposes a lot of problems because we'd have to open the fire contract, first of all.
Yeah.
We'd have to do an MA. This will become expensive because they're also going to be part of the pension plan and everything else.
Oh, they're not supposed to be.
But they will be if they're called honorary membership, and they're going to, like, we don't know where to put them, but if we're gonna pay them probationary, and we're gonna give them a salary through the union, Am I right, Chris?
Well, that's.
No, I didn't mean it that way. I think, I'm not sure what the pay rate is, but I
A
just saw
probationary makes,
17-something.
okay,
1770,
somewhere,
And a
I was gonna,
lifeguard- and a lifeguard makes 18.
They make 18?
yeah.
All right,
so-
well, to me, that's kind of a problem, because we just hired some people at 20. I just think it should be the same pay
Lifeguards?
rate.
Lifeguards?
No, the lifeguards' pay should be the same as the new,
Now, who do we
Community
hire at
release.
$20
Who
an
did we
hour?
hire at 20?
it says $20 an hour
So
for the.
they're not
new
lifeguards, those are
Community.
community resource
Community,
officers.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're different.
They're under the police division.
I don't see it that way.
But it's police.
But-
They're not trained to go save somebody in the water. They're not.
They're not, I'm just trying to raise the pay, because that's one of the reasons why you have a problem getting lifeguards. Having said that, the rest of it has no bearing on them being part of
Well, it says their
them,
accrued
except an
time would
honorary
be
member.
transferable for seniority.
They're not gonna be in the contract, they would
Yeah,
just
but
have.
you said that their accrued time,
Transfers is,
It could be, if they
well,
want
that,
to
that
be.
creates a pension problem.
that becomes, yeah, that's the problem.
And I thought about that, and that's why it's discussion. If there's a problem, there's a problem. But I also asked the fire chief if he could comment on it, what he thinks about it.
Greg, are you prepared?
I think if we could come up with a program like the police department's doing,
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. It's a little different as far as doing that in the fire service. Could there be some credit towards a lifeguard, towards being a fireman? I think there could be some credit stuff, but I don't know about the honorary stuff, but maybe some points or something to that effect. But if we had a program, which is that's a little more challenging than what the police are doing, because we're not out in the community day to day to.
But a lifeguard and a firefighter are two different, like, they are going to be writing tickets, doing what?
Right.
Probation, but
So our
police
programs are a
officers
little
do.
different, so if I could.
Lifeguards do CPR when they have to, but other
Right.
than that,
It's beach security.
it's very different.
It is very different. If we could come up with a program on something what they're doing, but it's so different as far as they're doing beach security, we don't really have that on the fire side of things because of the liabilities, the fires, the equipment, the training. Maybe if we were just like an EMS service, you could have somebody, volunteer and do blood pressures.
If it was two separate,
Right.
if it was
So it's a little
firefighters and paramedics.
Yeah, so
yeah.
it becomes challenging. And I know Donna had talked to you about some type of point system, if they could get a point or two for being town residents or something to that effect, if they want to take the fire avenue. But I think we need to find, on the fire side, I think we need to find that program to get the kids
So
involved.
I do know that Chief Ramos had
We've
worked
tried
with
it.
the schools to try to develop
Very
a
difficult.
program with the high school principal, and I know that that
Yes.
was in the process of trying to be worked on very similar to what the police have just done.
Exactly.
And I know there's more work that needs to be done with that,
Yes.
as we move forward for the fire department. So that could be a program, but we're not there yet. So that's-
I agree.
They're a little bit further ahead than you are.
And,
Yes.
and I appreciate your thought process on this, Donna. I guess it doesn't look like it now, but I was a water safety instructor and a lifeguard. But I never.
beach.
No, I never, ever
Can you see that?
desired, but never had the skill set needed to be a firefighter. I mean, I always envy firefighters. And so there are some similarities around the CPR and the like. Certainly, especially ocean lifeguards and beach lifeguards need to have that physical endurance that firefighters need to have. But I am sorry, I don't have any desire, and I don't think many lifeguards have the desire to run into a burning building like these folks do. Some might, and if we can figure out what the chief said, acting chief said in that regard, then we can look at something
I
like
was
that.
just looking for that they already have a mindset to save people, and so they're already kind of thinking that way. And I was like trying to marry or have some type of a farm program to You know, that's all I was trying to do.
Did you want to increase?
And some of them are EMT certified. My grandson is. It's just a thought, that's all.
Yeah. It's a good idea, but we can't work them into the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
And if you believe that our lifeguards should be paid more, I totally agree with you.
And
Because
that's-
that will
if
help
that's
us
where you're
attract.
going- If that's where you're going, then that's a whole different.
No, we won't get it.
That's a statewide problem right now. Not
Right.
everybody's having that issue.
Right.
I don't know why I don't know why the pay's so low. You're asking someone to possibly have a double drowning, you're asking someone to actually go out and save someone and actually maybe drown themselves, and yet you don't pay them anything. I think that the mindset is, oh, they're young and it's just a summer job. I think that's really unfair. It's unfair to think that way.
I do think it is based on the seasonal aspect of it, though. When you look at places where there is year-round lifeguarding, then those are professional lifeguards, they have professional
Year-round,
unions and the
like,
like.
You have the same structure.
Right,
You have,
right.
there's testing involved every week.
Right.
You have to hit.
It's quite a
certain
lot of
benchmarks.
testing.
Right.
And there
up
used
until
to
recent, I'm
be-
sorry, up until recently, there was a plethora of
That's what I was gonna say,
lifeguards.
yeah.
No, go ahead, Deb.
I think
That's what I was
you're
gonna
saying.
say.
Yeah.
I think.
That's,
It's
yeah.
not
Do we know-
glamorous anymore, they just don't want to do it, I don't
Well,
know.
I was at the beach twice this week and there's been empty chairs, every other chair, or it's been obvious.
So, the only time I've seen it in this area that's been like really real is Maine. When you go to Maine, the beaches up there, they have lifeguards, ski-doos,
Yes.
surfboards, they're all paddling. It's like a real big deal up there.
So, what is the average pay for a lifeguard? Are we very low?
No,
Because we discussed that.
No, we're not.
we're not
Oh,
low.
you know that, yeah.
Yeah, we're not low. We pay out of the most in this area, we pay the most for lifeguards.
Except for Little Compton. I don't think we pay as much as Little Compton.
What?
No, I think we
You
do.
don't,
They're oceanfront, why not?
But they're
So-
open surf,
Yeah, they're open
so
surf.
they might get a little more, but I know they're regular.
But they're not far from where
Different
we are.
certification, maybe?
Yeah, it is.
It is, total different certification.
Question I have a question. Don't you think that this would be an issue for the unions later on? Because
It
there's
would be.
nothing right now in the contract. You know if this gets in, the next contract, they're gonna try to negotiate it into their contract.
yeah.
So-
And that's what that would be what I would be concerned about.
So I doubt seriously that they would open up the contract now to add
No,
this language.
but I'm saying later
Well,
on.
that's,
down the
that's
road.
what, that,
You know, same
it
thing
would
with the
require
police.
that now.
You know, right
Yeah,
now,
but they would have to open it if this happened. They would have to open it.
But
well, they could request to open it. That doesn't
We
mean-
can request
right.
to open it, but
Because I can see that down the road where, right now, there's nothing in the contract. But as soon as they feel it's beneficiary, they're gonna try to open it up and get it in the contract.
I
so,
couldn't imagine filling shifts at the beach.
So, so we could look at, like, some sort of point system differently that, for any town resident, not necessarily just lifeguards, and I don't know if we've ever done that.
we could also like,
In years past and previous, there's, and Joe might remember this, there's been, in rules and regulations, I went looking for it this week, it talked about, like, when you were a volunteer, back in the volunteer would take precedence, or, it was only like a little wording of it, and, I mean, when I was a volunteer, it was supposed to help me get to the fire department, and you got a little bit of credit towards that. So that's why I had mentioned to Donna about maybe some type of point system or credit, or you're a town member. I think anybody from in town should have the advantage, a couple extra points here and there to help them in the testing process.
Yeah, they took the volunteers out of the contract, there's not even a thing in there.
No.
That's why I couldn't even use it, I
there
had
isn't.
to try to think of something.
Yeah, that was pushed out years ago.
Yeah.
And that's just what I said, that's what happens with the union. They didn't wanna get them out because they felt threatened or whatever, and that's what
Yeah.
happened. That was
But
done
that
by.
was your farm system.
That was the fire, yeah, but that was the fire chief who instituted that when he was here. His goal was to do away with the volunteers and just go with a permanent department, because back in the day, we had 60 volunteers from all 4 stations, different, 20 and 30.
Yeah, all the kids used to hang around the
Yeah.
guys, and you had
I
all
did.
these people.
For a
so
long
maybe
time.
we could work with the high school on a way to
So, like the administrator said, I know Bruce has been there, and we have been there in the past, and, you know, you hear the whole generation stuff, so maybe we can educate them more somehow, but it's just the interest, I don't think is there coming out of the high school. It's a lot of educational stuff now. It's not like, no disrespect for back in the day, but back in the day, we put oxygen on somebody and transport them. Now we have your life
Right.
in our hands,
And
and
also-
it's a paramedic. It's all these different materials for fires burning hotter, faster, quicker. So there's a lot to it, and I don't know if we're getting that. Either we're not getting the point across to them on what it entails. That could be shame on us, but until we get something developed like the police department's doing, I think just a simple.
There's just so
Well,
many
also,
opportunities
back in
for
the day, too.
kids now, you know.
Right.
But also back in the day, there were volunteers who dedicated their life to going to fires 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock,
We're not
going
gonna
on
get
calls.
that anymore.
And then a job came up and they were told, oh yeah, and they were passed over by somebody from out of town who knew nothing about firefighting. And that discouraged a lot of people and they said, you know, I'm not gonna volunteer anymore.
Yeah, it happened to a lot of
Yeah,
volunteers.
We
A
had
lot of
some good,
volunteers
we
out
had some good volunteers. They ended up fire chiefs in Portsmouth, captains in Narragansett. We never hired them.
Yep.
And we had the opportunity to hire them first.
So Donna, what do you want to do?
First of all, thank you. You knew there was some problems, and you
Yeah,
put
I
it
just
on.
wanted to mention
No,
it out loud so
and
we
you
could
put
all
it on
talk
here,
about
and we're allowed to discuss it. I don't know where they can, you know, what we can do to have sort of like a pathway thing. I'm not sure. But another thing is, anyone that's interested in nursing programs is another one to go to. You find out who's going into the nursing programs in the high school, that's applying for nursing. Those are your other resources. They probably aren't even thinking of going into the fire department.
Right.
But I think pretty soon what's gonna happen, instead of bringing people to the emergency room, you're going to treat them right there with your paramedics.
Well,
You're
they
not
do
gonna
now.
take them.
They're doing that on the West Coast already.
Right.
LA Fire Department's doing a big study, and some of our locals are starting to do it, Forever, and I think Westport.
Yeah,
They're starting to go to houses and
and it's
people in the
right
house.
there.
treat minor stuff right now. I mean, right now, even on our own rescue, we're carrying antibiotics, right? So whoever saw that coming? So,
Yeah. And
that's a.
I just read there's a new medication that the fire department's going to give for stroke. Brand-new medication, and it works, you give it in the first half hour, and they don't even have to go to the hospital.
Yeah. I know what it
That'll be a long time for Rhode Island to get that.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah,
behind
anyway.
on the.
Well, I guess it would be up to town what they want to do with my idea. I'm okay with
Sounds
it.
like you're gonna continue to try to work with the high school and.
I'll
look at
try
other
to
options.
continue what Chief Ramos did with the high school and see if we can tweak the program that he started and.
Well, Chris had told me that Little Compton didn't have as much of a problem with lifeguards. Is that what you said?
This year they didn't, last 2 years they
Well,
haven't.
when I was there today, there was a couple of empty chairs, so I think we're all experiencing, but they have a lot more lifeguards than we have. They're everywhere. But there was a couple noticeably empty chairs here and
But
there.
it wasn't busy either.
Wasn't busy either.
They have them on,
So you think that's
they have them
why?
on speed dial.
Oh, all right, it wasn't busy either.
No,
Okay.
because I've been there on the weekend and they
Well,
have
yeah,
tons of.
I know, this weekend they were all full, yeah. All right, thank you. Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Okay,
See?
I'm so confused now.
We're at
Discussion
9C.
and possible vote to approve funding to advertise for harbor master assistant.
Somewhere.
So the harbor master, Tyler, had asked that, to hire it for an assistant.
Yeah.
So the duties and responsibilities of the assistant harbor master come in the direction of the harbor master. They're the same basic duties and responsibilities. And they would sign an indemnification agreement.
We put it in the budget, didn't we?
We did.
Okay.
Would
I
that
thought
be,
we had- I thought we
Yeah,
had
so
one.
what do we need?
would that
We
be a
just need-
seasonal job or
Yeah, it's seasonal.
seasonal? Okay.
So what we need is permission to go out for advertising. Okay. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Deb?
Didn't we have an assistant harbor master?
We haven't had one for the last couple of years.
We haven't?
There's a place
But
on
we
the budget
budgeted.
for
There
it,
is,
but it
we
never,
didn't- we didn't
so,
fill it.
so what would it be? What would the cost be?
I think it's 2,000.
Yeah,
Two-
it's
oh, two-
there.
two- was
There's
it
a
the-
line item, I saw it.
Oh,
There is a line item,
oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I saw it today, I looked,
All right.
because I thought it was there. All right, so, motion
He
been
Motion
made.
second.
Yeah, and he needs it.
He definitely needs
He
it.
talked about how you need 2 bodies to get whatever they have to do with the moorings.
Yep.
They're
Right.
heavy.
So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Okay.
So moved.
Town administrator discussion, possible vote to approve a 2-year contract extension with Church Community House Corp. for CDBG grant administration services.
So historically, the church community housing has always managed any community development block grant that Tiverton has received. Unfortunately, Tiverton hasn't received one since 2017. We don't qualify for them anymore. Church community housing intimated to me that they think there's money coming and there might be a relaxation of the rules. They don't know, but they want to be positioned to be the administrator should we ever get another grant. I just don't see another grant coming our way for a while. I just don't see that happening, but I told them I would ask the council if they would entertain extending. It doesn't cost us any money. They only get paid if there is a grant.
Yep.
Seems simple.
And it's $5,000, I think, is what they get for whatever grant that we get.
All right, do I have a motion?
Well, I'd like discussion.
Go ahead.
Okay. I looked what the pros and the cons were, if there was any strings attached, which is always important to look at. Even though you're only asking to extend a contract on something, we should know what the extension of that would be on this type of a grant.
2 years.
Now, just to take an example of Grinnell's Beach, we took money, state money, I think, for the grant, and we find frustration over many times having little control over the beach and some of the things we'd like to do because we can't do it because we took the grant money. These federal grants, CDBG grants, have strings attached that lend itself to taking over your zoning. And I think that's something you need to be aware of. The grant means it almost buys influence and takes over your zoning by the federal government. It transforms the town, urbanizes it. What happens is the section called AFFH is part of HUD, can even force you to rezone to accommodate low-income development, increase density by upping the amount of units. AFFH is a decades-old term that HUD just translated into a package of mandates governing how communities must use new grant money. Acceptance of the funds for the familiar programs such as CDBGs suddenly triggers the revised AFFH obligation. This chilling tactic allows HUD to take control of local zoning, reverses voters' decisions, and even annexes your hometown into a region. In one example, Rockford, Illinois, they were made to abandon their vote to build 49 affordable housing units and instead had to accept 69 units. Neither the mayor, the council, nor the community wanted the larger number of homes. It didn't matter. HUD struck like a sledgehammer. They threatened to notify the Department of Justice of possible...
Donna, can you give us a reference for this?
Huh?
Can you give us a reference for this?
I have Listen to Time and HUD Will Destroy Your City.
Yeah, but where is this printed? Who wrote this?
I had to look it up on the internet because I couldn't find anything under...
He's saying, is it New York Times, Chicago paper, is it, who's?
No, it wasn't a Chicago paper, didn't have that.
But who's the author?
This is from, what's it called? The American Policy Center.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So, it says that HUD is imposing requirements that go far beyond what the 1968 Fair Housing Act demands, moves high-density, low-income rental housing to the suburbs. The new rules restrict private choice, local government authority, and the evolutionary history of American resolution growth patterns. It uses subsidies, block grants, and targets a place to move and take over your zoning. HUD guarantees must consider statistical data. Would you have to do a lot of statistical data?
So we might, depending on what the grant was for, but I just want to slow you down for one thing.
Sure.
Tiverton, when it ever was allowed to receive community development block grants, it was limited to like 2 streets in Tiverton, both at the north end, right at the state line. And the town utilized the most of the money, because as I recall, all the years I was on the budget committee, were for sewering projects. That it was, whatever HUD is authorized would be in the Bourne Mill right now has already been authorized, and the allocation of any kind of housing that would be there has already been allocated by the planning board. There would be no increase in housing. So the only thing I would see if we were ever gonna apply for a CBDG grant would be for maintenance of the sewer interceptor line at that north end area. That's the only thing I could see that we could use it for that would qualify to meet that, because it's based on density and income level. And that's the only place it ever qualified, was those 2 streets.
Well,
And we apply for it, not necessarily.
yeah, but we haven't had it since 2017.
Right.
What I'm trying to say is the minute that you do accept these funds, you have a problem with your zoning. They can take over your zoning. The federal government can take over your
Have
zoning.
you looked at actual regulations that state that?
It's happening in cities.
Have you looked at actual regulations, HUD regulations that state what you just said? Because it's one thing to take something from a think tank, regardless of which end of the political spectrum it's on, and another thing to really see what the regulations say.
All right. It says that applying for the grant to complete an assessment fair housing, I think you would probably have to do that if you're going to apply for the
If
grant.
we were gonna apply, we probably would.
Right. To identify all contributing factors, to complete the breakdown of different levels of income, who's who, and national origin, and every single person living there. HUD demands a detailed plan showing how the community intends
So
to
HUD
eliminate.
and community development blocks are 2 different things. They use HUD monies, but they're not necessarily tied to one another.
Well, it is saying here
Well, that's a policy
that
about
the
Rockford,
minute-
Illinois. It's not,
The minute you accept the grants, you're accepting that they're going to interfere in your zoning.
well,
That's
I
all
would,
I'm saying.
I would like to have the opportunity to look at the grant application when it was available to see what we would be able to qualify for. And the fact that we haven't qualified since 2017, I don't think that we're gonna be anywhere near that. But I would still like to have the administrator available, should we ever go down that road, to be, and the other part of church community housing, I don't wanna lose a relationship with, is for every development that we do, whether it's low to moderate income housing for, they're actually the ones who buy the lands.
Yeah.
They're the ones who buy those lots. And so if anything's gonna happen with it, they would be the ones best suited to figure out what the community should do with it. Now granted, some of those low to moderate income lots are out in developments that are nowhere near the district that would qualify for a for a community development block grant. The only place we've ever qualified for is those 2 streets around the Spring Primavera. And for some reason, it's based on the density and affordability and income levels. There's no other place in town that ever qualified. And that's why the only thing we've ever done was sewering.
Well, how, the new developments that we're talking about off of Main Road, Fish Road, and
They wouldn't
that,
qualify.
they don't come
They
under that?
don't, they wouldn't fall under the community development block criteria for us to even apply for those areas.
Okay.
So that's, we're not exposing ourselves to anything, because we're not, we haven't applied for anything. It would only be to help us manage our way through that, and it would all come to the council before we would ever sign on to anything. So I'm just asking for courtesy to keep community development, church community housing as part of a partner with the town. They're not gonna get any money unless we actually do go for a grant. So we're not paying them, we're not subsidizing, we're not taking any resources away from the taxpayers, only if we apply for a grant. And all that material, we would have to filter through, go through to see what we qualify for, and then ask the council for approval to move forward, as we're doing with every grant now.
Okay. So right now, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve a 2-year contract extension with Church Community Housing Corp. for CDBG Grant Administration Services. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Against? Okay. All right, Town Administrator, discussion and possible vote to approve process for the community to provide suggestions on civic-related uses for various unobligated funds.
So this is an initial step that Council Burk had asked that before anybody could ask for any additional funds from any non-taxable revenues that we have, that the council has at their ability to dispose for the community. It would be best to have some sort of process to go through. So I tried to lay out, like, educationally, that I know of 3 funds that we have. One is, we have some opiate monies, which I'll get the criteria from those and get them posted up on our website. We have, like, the monies that came from the Tiverton Power Plant as a community effort to be utilized in the community,
Which we have,
which you have, and there's another installment.
I think we have 50,000 left in one.
I think we do.
Yeah.
And then there's another installment on its way for this year, which, you know, we'll break down. And then there's also the opera money, which, so trying to identify, like, the Tiverton Power Plant doesn't have any criteria other than it be a civic good. And it's been the council's decision as to what, you know, what to do with it that would be best suited for the community. We can try to put some rules out there for that. So, like I said, this is basically a first blush stab at trying to put something in, you know, I'd like to publish something like this on our website under another
Yeah.
block so that people can then see, especially like when you look at the American Recovery, there's all the rules that we had to go through, what qualifies, what doesn't. But at the end of the day, because we fall under that $10 million threshold, it's still up to the council to use it for any governmental purpose that you want. But people would like to be able to see and understand what is being used in different communities. And we'll put together a spreadsheet of everything that's been asked for, approved, and the things that have been asked for that the council has denied, if that, so be it. So we'll keep a running tally of everything for every one of these buckets of money so that people know there's a place in the community website. Hey, you know, I think I can think of something great, and maybe like what we're doing at Newport Mental Health. You know,
Can we-
maybe it would be,
On the website, could we put a process on how to apply for it?
Yeah, he has a form in
there is a
Yeah, I saw
form, but
that.
it's
That'll be on
it's
the-
very limited at
That'll
the
be on
moment.
the website.
It would be, yeah.
Okay.
We'll put that on the website, and they'll distinguish what fund they're looking to expend,
Yep.
how much money they're looking to spend, and a brief synopsis of what it is they're looking to do. So that, you know, we're not the only ones spending this money, that, you know, you ultimately will be the authority to do it.
Yeah.
But this gives people an opportunity to say, you know, I've got some good ideas, let me get them before the council. And I'll keep a running tally of it, we'll keep it published, and then periodically you guys can vote on it as a committee to, you know, as a council, to determine what's best suited for the community.
All right.
Madam
Any
President.
Questions? Go ahead.
So, Chris, I appreciate you putting this together, because I have been talking about it. I think we all feel strongly about transparency and giving people opportunities. So this moves us forward with that. I think it's a great first step. And I appreciate that under the ARPA, for example, you gave a deadline of September 30th of this year. And I think that's something, and my only suggestion is on, you don't have the slides number, but it's I guess this one right after the cover.
Okay, that's it.
So, and I think you're trying to get at this, so examples of some of these current examples maybe, saying
Correct.
something like
Yep.
that? Because there may be other sources that come
There could be
forward
others
later
coming
on.
I believe we'll get other opioid settlement monies from other vendors that the state is fighting with. And ultimately, I'd like to see the AG's office, we had talked about this many years ago, about all the settlements that they're doing, you know, when they do like airbags for cars, right? It just goes in the general fund in a black hole and nobody ever sees it. Are there people in the community who've had issues with it? Should the community get a piece of that to help with constituent services? Now, and granted, I don't know what the rules and regulations would be for that, but, you know, each one of these components that come in as far as funding to us, there should be requirements as to how it can be expended.
Yeah, and as much as we can put deadlines on any of those as we go forward, it might be something you need to discuss with the council at the
Okay.
time.
Yep.
But I think that's important so people
It
can
is.
see that and say, okay, well, this is coming up, and maybe we will get a certain pot of money every year from somebody, and so we set a time frame for applications for it. No, I think this is a great step forward.
And
Thank
believe me,
you.
if there's any suggestions that you want to see that I haven't put here, get them to me, and I'll gladly try to incorporate them. I'm not trying to take this over, I'm trying to facilitate
you're
getting
trying to-
something to you
trying
to work
move it
with.
forward. Does
Well,
anyone have any questions?
And I'll do a draft of where we are with ARPA as to what's been allocated and where we are with that, so that you can also see what would be on the website for that as well, too.
I was just wondering that with the amount of money that's, what, almost $5 million?
It's 4 point, for ARPA,
Yeah.
it was
4.8?
4.6, was it?
If we could get permission from the public to spend that money,
It's not required, Donna. I'm not trying to be rude, but it's
No.
the
Yeah.
council's responsibility.
I'm sorry, what was that
She
question?
wanted the people in town to
oh, yeah.
approve how that could be
No,
spent.
we can't, that's not with the guidelines.
Yeah.
It's up to us.
what, the federal guidelines?
Yep.
Yep.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, we've talked transparency, and we've utilized funding for some really great ideas, but it's what we've thought of, and a couple of limited people who come to us. So this gives other people in the community the ability to come and say, hey, I've got a great idea.
No, I agree.
And something that none of us ever would have thought about, so.
If you think about it the way that you're saying, Donna, the people will help us decide. They will come forward with ideas.
I have an idea. Can I give it to you?
Sure.
Yeah, of course you can. All right.
Put it on the next agenda.
All right, so, do we, so I need a vote to approve this process for the community to provide suggestions on civic-related uses for various unobligated funds. Do I have a motion?
I move approval of the administrator's proposal.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made in second. Any further discussion?
I will get it up on the website as quickly as I can, and I will try to find the dates.
We have to vote.
We have to vote.
All those in favor?
They said, do you want any discussion?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you'll get it up on the website, yeah.
I just wanted you to know what I was gonna do with it, that's all.
Is it,
All right.
if at all possible,
Yeah.
if that form could be made a fillable PDF,
I
it
will.
would make it easier.
I will, I'll definitely do that. I need to talk to Stu, because he's the one that's gonna do it.
Yeah.
Discussion at, H is Councilor Burk, discussion possible vote to approve the proposed resolution regarding a valid question related to the license of cannabis-related licenses within the town of Tiverton pursuant to the Rhode Island Cannabis Act.
So the legislature and the governor signed legislation that now allows for recreational marijuana to be used. I don't have all the details up above a certain amount for those 21 and older. It also allows for a certain number of licenses to be granted for retail establishments, and I think also, I could be wrong on this, for growing. But one of the things, it was brought to my attention by one of our residents, Maureen Morrow, about a referendum. She had been of the understanding that all cities and towns must have a referendum. It's actually that if we do not have a referendum, to ask whether residents want us to allow recreational marijuana retail sales in the community, then by default, they are allowed. And any could be cited here, even if we don't want it. So this is simply to put forward a referendum question. There is a slight correction that we'll make when we take a vote in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th whereas if approved by voters, the town of Tiverton will also not be eligible, blah, blah, blah. The citation there should be 21-28.11-13. So take that last 11 out and make that 13, and I'll make that motion part of the motion. And the language is the language that the statute requires, correct? So I'll let Todd explain anything I missed.
You didn't miss
Okay.
It's that simple.
Any questions from the council? I'd like to entertain a motion.
I will make a motion that we pass the resolution before us with the amendment that, that site in the fifth, whereas be changed to 21-28.11-13, and we move this to a ballot question.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made in second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Before we end, I just wanted to make a quick announcement, which I think is exciting. The Tiverton Major All-Star Girls Little League softball team is representing Tiverton for the state title. They've had such a winning season, they got to this point. They played this evening and they won big time, like 24-1. They're playing again on Wednesday and Thursday. I would just like to wish the All-Star girls and their manager good luck for the next 2 days, and I'd like to read who they are. The manager is Michael Martin, Nathaniel Carlton, and Jess Sylvia are the coaches, and the girls are Kelsey Conroy, Kristen Dakotas, Morgan Romano, Abby Gilfillan, Isabella Halstead, Lillian Lewis, Carly Martin, Sophia Morales, Chloe Oliveira, Parsley Parisi, Brooke Soa, and Adelie Wolf. And we wish them all luck on behalf of
Go
the town
Tigers.
council. Oh, yeah, well, I don't know if they're calling themselves Tigers, but if anybody's around.
Aren't they all Tigers?
No,
They're not
this is Little
they're not a
League.
school-affiliated
Oh, I
team.
thought they
We
were
can
school.
ask them to name it if you want.
No, and they wear red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I apologize.
So they're playing Wednesday and Thursday.
No, I just-
Yeah, they're playing Wednesday and Thursday at Town Farms if anyone's interested to go cheer them on.
5:45.
5:45. And I just got a text that they won big time. So,
Cool, I think that's great.
all right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I missed you, John.